Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a new podcast interview for our Rethink Waste Regularity Working Group. In today's episode, we will address a very important topic for the waste management industry, and that is how waste collection, sorting, and recycling companies can improve their, let's say, future-proof investment decisions based on proper consulting, engineering, and management consultancy. Therefore, we have with us today Mr. Thomas Baldt from Experts4Recycling. So hello, Thomas, and thank you for accepting our invitation, first of all.
Hello, Tudor. Thanks for having me.
Thomas, let's begin by telling our audience a couple of words, about yourself, your company. Where do you activate? How long have you been operating in the industry? So these kind of things to start with.
Let's start with the latter. As an individual, I have spent close to 20 years in waste management and recycling. 14 years of those, in other words, 2/3 of those 20 years, I was working as an employee for plant builders and OEMs. And we were tailoring recycling systems according to specific customer demands. I was active on 4 continents. I traveled in the business context to more than 60 countries, 60. So that means I have seen a lot of waste. And if ever somebody finds my mobile phone with so many waste pictures of waste, in it, I think they will definitely call the police, or I don't know, somebody else, because they would think I'm insane. Anyway, but I think that goes for many of us industry veterans. Let's say that part of my life, there was almost 14 years working for companies, European companies, but also one American company allowed me really to establish a close-knit industry network of suppliers of all kinds of technologies. Of course, many, let's say, managers, plant managers of recycling, operators of recycling and waste management companies. And that was, of course, very helpful for me when I started off my own business. That was in 2017. And it turned out to be a good, let's say, an asset, really to have come from execution towards consulting, because as we always call it in German, Luftschlösser, air castles, that would be the literal translation of that. We don't build air castles for our customers together with our customers, but we aim to really, let's say, make established concepts that have a really high likelihood to be, realized as we conceive them. What are we doing in terms of waste streams? I would say we cover the whole 9 yards of solid, non-hazardous waste streams. That includes, of course, MSW. That includes also commercial, industrial waste, all kind of selectively collected waste. And when it comes to the step after sorting, that means recycling, we are highly focused and specialized at the moment in plastics recycling, in PET recycling to be more precise. But in the last couple months, in particular in polyolefin recycling, this is where we really conceive complete factories. And factories is a word that I use on intent for waste management facilities, because we need to start think, of a factory when we have a waste sorting facility in mind. That means all the standards, all the, the processes that are well, and logically planned and everything. Well, we need to go away from what waste has been, waste industry has been like for many, many years, but we need to make the next step. Why? Because now those requirements and demands really to produce recyclates that you can use for really replacing virgin materials in high quality applications. We can't continue to do what we have been doing. And also that is one thing. And also the waste streams are not getting any better. They are on the contrary, getting more heterogeneous as they ever were. That means technology and really, how to say, a purposeful cascade of implementing the different technologies. That's the key thing. So that was a long answer to your first question. I apologize for that.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I think everyone agrees that when you enter into the waste management industry, one of the first things that you will need to do is to take into account some important investment decisions, right? So in this regard, I wanted to ask about your role here. So what type of services are you specifically providing for the waste industry?
That's I would say, an excellent question. And I think I could bring some important aspects in answering to this question. What we are offering, we also try to define work packages that doesn't always work perfectly, and still we want to remain flexible, but still we have thought and we have defined work packages where we kind of match the various different stages of an investment project. And that is, the first is really starting off with a concept where we, together with the customer, based on his input materials in terms of amount, but also breakdown, we define a process flow. Once we got that confirmation that we're on the right way, we would establish a mass balance where we really, define output qualities, quantities, losses, and the like. We can then, of course, come to the conclusion together with the customers that recovery loops are necessary in order to increase recovery. It can, become apparent that one-step sorting isn't sufficient, but you need a cleaning or even a second cleaning step. That means those are all things that become visible when you do a proper mass balance. After the mass balance is confirmed and the customer says, okay, we're on the right way, those are the quantities and qualities which we would like to produce in the new facility. We would start as the next step drawing a 3D layout of the entire sorting plant. Of course, there will be iterations with the customer where we always bring him on board about the stage at which we are, and of course they can weigh in. And we also want, on the other hand, we want confirmation, because nothing is more terrible than doing a work for 3-4 weeks. That is approximately the amount it does take us in order to come up with speaking now about a real, a plant where you need to imagine you have 15, 20 optical sorters, you have 10, 15 other, pieces of processing equipment, and you end up with having 1, 2, or even more kilometers of total conveyor length. So that is, let's say, the 3 to 4 weeks is what we, on average, as a rule of thumb, would, let's say, foresee for coming up with a 3D layout where there is no collisions, where really everything has been clarified, where we factor in the building, everything, space requirements that we have. So 3D really has turned out to be a great asset. And once we have this layout, we have all the, the ingredients to come up with a proper CapEx estimation. That means we are not a manufacturing company, but based on our experience, and as we do it regularly, we know the prices. We come up with a CapEx figure that is plus minus 10%, I would say, accurate. In most of my estimations, it's plus minus 5%. This is also, let's say, a little bit of my personal pride. So I want to make it accurate and really, to make it as accurate as possible. Mm-hmm. So customer then has another important measure for continuing his process. He can now, of course, say, this is far too expensive. We need to rework it. We need to reduce the amount by, I don't know, X, Y%. Then we have to go back to the start, basically, and to think what we can do for this budget, unless we have already a clear budget indication from the very beginning. That, of course, would be very helpful as well. As we know, sometimes you have what we call a garage problem. There is, not the space is not available, the CapEx, let's say the budget is not available. So the more we are guided right from the beginning, the better, but sometimes also, along the way, you come to certain conclusions. What we also did, that means with all those steps, we were able to provide, I would say, relevant information for the decision process. We also, let's say, offer services like workshops where we then sit together with the customer, with potential investors and so on, to come together to a conclusion. Also, let's say, a little bit to play, how to say, devil's advocate, to challenge the project if the customer so wishes, or being challenged ourselves. So we are not shy of being challenged. So at the end of the day of such a workshop, really, I think results turn out. Sometimes it's not even everything that you would think was clear in the morning when you enter the meeting room, but you get away with a different point of view here and there right after, but it is very relevant. Before you spend money, you need to make all those, let's say, quality and, how to say, loops. And what we also now do, or started doing very recently, is to kind of assess concepts done by others, where customers, they have really done a lot, they went a long way, but now it comes to finance, and partners need to be found, investors need to be brought on board, and still there is some doubt remaining, and we can analyze those concepts by others. We then, of course, can say, is the concept technically fit for purpose, and is the capex, how to say, justified? Is the capex demand justified? Means, is it too expensive? Because that is also what we have come across, where really things are factored in that explode the budget, but that are not really necessary. So we are, how to say, neutral, of course, in this perspective. We just bring facts to the table, and the customer takes it from there. So this is what we are doing. And also, lastly, maybe to mention, in the recycling and waste management business, a lot of acquisition is taking place as we speak, and I have witnessed this from how to say, from the first row. I would say very closely, that sometimes acquisitions are done, and the buyer, so to speak, does not have a precise understanding of the asset in terms of also, let's say, value, but also in terms of use options. And that's of course very important to know, because typically the new ownership would not necessarily follow one-on-one the old business model, and they would like to increase capacities. They would like to do, or to treat other waste streams. They would like to produce different mix of commodities, and it can turn out that things are possible with the equipment and the plant as it is, or other things need retrofitting. There needs equipment to be added, there needs conveying steelwork to be added, and we can help them. The earlier they involve us, basically, or let's say, principally before they make a final purchase, that would be ideally for any party, I would say, in this how to say, adventure. At the end of the day, there is still, it's a risky process in the literal sense of the word, but the earlier they involve us, the better. We can do things like let's say, produce a 3D scan of the existing facility, where you really end up with a digital twin of the plant, because we have seen almost never we came across a plant where you really have a solid as-built documentation. It's not existing, right? And there are retrofits being done, small things, bigger changes to the concept, and you end up, there is no, let's say, and then also people left that were involved in those projects. So you end up with a situation where it is not really entirely clear what is in the facility, and we help. I would say what we bring to the table is clarity. And of course, we then also put a price tag on it. At the end of the day, what is let's say, what we think would be the value of the asset, and how much money still needs to be invested in order to come to the goals that the new owners have in mind. So, and that of course has influence on their business case. And again, it is a process involving several loops. So that is basically what we are doing, if that answers your question.
I think it definitely answered our questions. Thank you very much, Thomas. Speaking of clarity, you know that nowadays waste industry is inevitably linked with circular economy, sustainability, mitigating GHG emissions, yeah, all this stuff. And what I wanted to ask you next would be, from your point of view, do you think that the level of awareness in this industry is high enough for people to understand that by, let's say, using services similar to the ones that you are providing, they can actually improve their sustainability targets? So besides increasing, of course, their profit.
Let's say yes. I think there is awareness. There's awareness of all kinds, different. Let's say on different stakeholder level, I would say. But of course, waste management operators have this awareness. The simple fact of the matter, however, is that there is a shortage of capital. That is the biggest problem. Owners that have brought up their business, sometimes it's second, third, whatever generation already, great entrepreneurship, everything. But now to meet these new requirements, those targets, there is, let's say, a lot of investments that are needed. So insofar, yes, the awareness is there. I am witnessing, on many occasions that customers have ideas and really a clear intent to do things for the better, to invest, but they are then facing short-term contracts. That means when you are supposed to invest 30 million euros upwards into a facility to make it fit for purpose, meeting the new regulations and the recycling quota, everything that we face in all across Europe, but then you end up having, contracts that secure only 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years of material that you would receive into that facility, and for that you would like to invest 30 upwards million euros. So that is simply not playing out. There is a big mismatch between how to say, requirements and demands, but not providing security for investors and for companies, for owners. And I understand any one of those who then says, okay, no, this is too risky. I'm not, let's say, taking the full risk, but in return don't get enough security, let's say, input wise. So that is a big problem that really we come across many times, and where I get a little bit, hopefully not too much, also emotionally involved in that. So, but that is really a mismatch. So the industry needs capital, and also anyone that has the requirements are justified. We need to do better than we did ever before. We need to think or rethink about many things. Life cycle analysis is one of the things that needs to be deployed regularly all across the value chain of recycling. But at the end of the day, we need to understand what this means investment-wise in terms of amounts of money that need to be deployed. And that is, there really we would like to contribute to clarity. And also what we now do, we speak with banks, for instance. We explain them the situation. We talk to investors interested in going into that industry. We explain them the situation. So sometimes we are kind of translating a little bit between the different worlds, and I'm deeply convinced we need to see more investors and new players that come from other industries. There is, be it retailers, that are operating globally, be it companies from paper manufacturing or whatever kind of industry, cement industry, or industrial investors that know really well what they have been doing all the time, but they still have, let's say, I would say some understanding issues with waste management and recycling industry. So I don't know if this is answering your question.
Yeah, it definitely does. Thank you, Thomas. We are almost at the end of our discussion, and I would like to ask you one more thing. And this is related to innovation and technology. We have now artificial intelligence chatbots that are basically writing better papers than us.
Yeah, absolutely. Scary at times.
Fortunately or unfortunately, depending
Yeah,
on which
exactly.
side you are.
Exactly.
So, Thomas, do you see AI and digital solutions to have a paramount role in the future of waste management industry, or maybe there still are some things that AI will simply not be able to replace in the near future? Like in the process, is more something like in the mechanical part. I don't know.
Like it's a great question, and I think it's one of the most sensitive questions
Yeah,
that you can ask
definitely.
in the industry. Maybe a little bit to give you a brief history of myself. I was closely involved in companies that provide robotic sorting solutions for waste management, incorporating artificial intelligence or machine learning. I have learned a lot of things, and the more I learned, a little bit, the less secure I became. Where does machine learning stop, and where does real artificial intelligence start? But anyway, that's not even the point. Of course, it has an enormous value in terms of increasing the capabilities of sensor-based sorting that we already have. So we call it sensor fusion in the industry. You have NIR, deterministic recognition systems like NIR, like inductive sensors, but also classical RGB cameras. And on top, you can use artificial intelligence to go deeper in recognition, to make more reliable a recognition, and to avoid recognition errors. That will work, and that will come, and we see it already. We are not throwing any names here, but many of the well-known and reputed companies are using in their the deterministic recognition systems. Now they use artificial intelligence. They have this as an add-on, and so on. I have seen that. Also, let's say closely, I was involved in tests and everything. I've spent a lot of time really observing those machines, on test trial operations, but also customers that went for it, and really, observing the improvements, but also to be honest, seeing the implementation challenges that especially when we go back 3-4 years ago, there were a lot of implementation challenges. AI is important. AI can really help you to make the whole facility smart. It gives you possibilities to go deeper in process monitoring and control, which is really necessary. Why is this necessary? Because the biggest challenge in our industry is we have something that is changing and fluctuating all the time in terms of in-feed quantities, but even more, I would say, challenging material breakdown. And in relation to that, changes in bulk density. And everybody that is involved in sizing systems will agree when I say that tonnage per hour is important, but even more important is the volumetric flow per hour, the cubic meters per hour, right? That is so important. And if we see changes there, and we have, of course, the plant stays the same, the equipment width in particular stays the same, we will have, we will see also, let's say, fluctuations in the output quality. And that is a challenge because the requirements, as said before, they are getting stiffer, and people would like to see better results and higher recycling quota. That means less material that is allowed to end up in product loss at the end of the day. So what I really think, AI is great. It's a great asset. It helps really a lot and will help even further in the future. But still, I'm a mechanical engineering by heart. It is a mechanical process, and we need to conceive the whole facility. We have to have a proper feeding of the, separation technologies like NIR sorting, but also, let's say, ballistic separators, wind shifters. We need to feed them properly. We need to have logical cascades of aligned, parts of the process. And in my opinion, we need buffering and intermediate storage facilities. This is simply something that you need to conceive into a facility from the very beginning. Of course, it takes space, but even if you level the flow for 15 or 30 minutes, it makes a lot of difference. We now, for instance, we are involved in an integrated recycling facility for polyolefin, 3D polyolefin materials coming out of selectively collected systems like Corepla in Italy or ARA in Austria, der Grüne Punkt in Germany. So it comes in bales. Bales are not almost inside what they should be, like according to the tag they carry along with them. And we conceive an integrated facility. That means the name of the game is securing an inline process that works efficiently. That means the customer will go the whole 9 yards from really pre-sorting those bales or resorting, even better to call it resorting. Then he goes into wet grinding, goes into washing with all the different cascades that go along with washing and drying and hot washing and everything. And then you have the flakes. Then you have to resort the flakes, let's say remove remaining impurities. And at the end of the day, you feed the material to extruders, which are enormously energy intensive. And you simply need to think. There will always be problems, not big ones, hopefully, but in the process somewhere, upstream, downstream. So by having those intermediate storage possibilities, you can really do a lot in order to have, and that's the name of the game at the end of the day. It's about uptime, right? And people now would like to operate 7,500 hours. That's also, in my opinion, possible, but you need to think what you're doing, and you need to have a concept that offers some redundancy, but also some buffering. So then you're on a good track. But this is what I see. So it's the combination of mechanical process, of really having a good layout and smart layout, and highly sophisticated recognition systems that, of course, definitely involve artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, the Judgment Day from Terminator is still not here, yeah. And
that is one of my favorite movies, by the way. So I don't want to bring now the quote, but I have no. But it's a great movie, and now it's not that the machines take over yet, but machine and intelligent machine, and this is important for sure. And we will. I think the future will be positive in an unpredictable way. So I think it will go even now. What we see or starting to see is the combination of experienced equipment manufacturers that now take over or involve or closely engage with AI, how to say, wizards,
Mm-hmm.
That was a problem in the beginning, that people, really smart people, PhDs from universities, they ended up with this crazy idea. They saw it rather as a challenge than as a business. Really, what would be a very challenging application for AI? Okay, let's go for sorting robots or for recognition systems for the waste industry. That's great, but it was, and I observed it, as I said, closely. It took a long way until those companies became industrialized and really understood the industry. And you need to understand. So that is so important, that all the stakeholders, that one that come up with the recognition systems, but also the one that, build the steel around, they need to understand, and they need to understand the capabilities and the limitations of the party before and afterwards, and only then we can come up with intelligent machines and an intelligent process. But I'm excited. So I think we see a lot of very good developments, and suppose that there will be enough also investments in recycling industry. I think the vision that we all together have, I think is possible. It might take some time still, but I think it's getting better. So I'm excited, and I would like also address one topic. Let's stop bashing, you know, on people that don't do things right, you know, or about certain groups of materials. I'm not mentioning the name more precisely, but I could have meant perhaps plastics or polymers. So let's think about it. Let's also use here life cycle analysis, and let's try to really take a look at the things from, you know, from all the angles that need to be taken into consideration. So understanding and bridging the gaps. I think if this video, and I think your questions were great. Hopefully my answer's not too long, but this is what this video, and also we with our company, with Experts4Recycling, we would like to contribute to bridging the gap and helping to establish a higher degree of clarity between the several stakeholders.
Yeah, definitely. Super, Thomas. Thank you for the discussion and for your proactive mindset.
Thank you. Thank you, Tudor.
I really enjoyed our discussion. I'm sure our audience will also do it. Yeah, so that's all for today. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you very much for being here with us today. And we are all, of course, looking forward to having you in our future activities.
So then I can bring up the line, I'll be back.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Thank you very much. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Tudor. Pleasure to talk to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.